Is Apple going to fully ban Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp on the iPhone 14? Or has Facebook sort of outsmarted Apple? Apple and Facebook have a very complicated relationship that is going to get even more complicated in 2022. Facebook is trying to take down Apple, Apple's trying to fight back against Facebook. Let me explain why this is going to be the biggest tech feud of 2022, why it matters to you, and how it's going to change your iPhone, your iPad, and basically all technology you own forever. At this point, the feud between Apple and Facebook seems like a story almost as old as time itself. Facebook hates Apple, Apple hates Facebook, and you probably hate Facebook too. They were just voted the worst company of 2021, and probably for good reason. And even a corporate rebrand to Meta has not helped this company's reputation. Meta, Facebook, whatever you want to call it, the company is riddled with issues, and most people have lost all of their trust in this company. And what was once this great collection of apps and services with Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, now is sort of this sleazy corporation that you sort of hate to love to use. And what's so complicated now is that Apple, more than ever, wants to kick these apps totally off of the iPhone, the iPad, and probably even the Mac, basically off of all of their platforms as much as they can. But this whole chapter, this feud between Apple and Facebook, has entered a more sinister level now in so many different ways. Now, first off, for those of you who need a little context, here's a little explanation, the Cliff Notes version of why Apple and Facebook sort of hate each other. First off, with Facebook, this was once a company really loved for what they were doing. They were connecting friends and family members from all over the world. The technology was exciting and made connecting free and easy, and it was this great collection of platforms that was really fun to use and really helped you sort of share your life with others all around the world. But time after time, over and over again, Facebook has shown that they really cannot be trusted, and a lot of people just believe they don't have your best interest at heart. They're collecting your information, they're sort of using it against you to serve you these personalized, creepy, good, targeted ads. They're in some cases selling this information to third-party data brokers, and scandal after scandal, data leak after data leak has exposed not only what Facebook is collecting, but how easily it can slip into the wrong hands. At the same time, Apple has sort of doubled down their stance on safety and security and privacy. They want all Apple device users and owners to be safe on their platform. Steve Jobs famously said when it came to sort of collecting users' information, you're supposed to ask them every time. Apple wants to make it abundantly clear who is collecting your information, what info they want to collect, and if it's okay with you or not. And time after time over the years, Apple has introduced more services, more sort of security measurements put in place to keep you aware of when your data is being collected and from which apps, and how you can easily put a stop to it. But what was probably one of Apple's biggest, most controversial moves of all was the launch of App Tracking Transparency several months ago that basically gave users pretty much full control and the choice on whether or not they wanted to allow an app to track them across various apps and websites, or ask the app not to track them. This is really good for users, so they were totally in control and could say yes or no, but really bad for apps and services like Facebook, Google, Snapchat, and other apps that sort of make their money. Their bread and butter is collecting your information and either using it to target you with ads or sell off to third parties like data brokers. And this is beyond just sort of bad news. This affects companies' bottom lines. Facebook, Snapchat, Google all talked about how annoying this was to them and how much of an impact it could have on their businesses, because if you think about it, the less information they can collect, the less tracking they can do, the less info they have about you. And the less info they have about you, the less relevant those ads can be, and the less relevant those ads can be, the less effective they are, and the less information they can sell. Not good news for companies like Facebook, who really hate these moves by Apple and want to do everything they can, good or bad, to sort of skirt around them and still continue to collect your information. And some companies like Facebook in particular have gone beyond just slamming Apple on CNBC, taking out full page ads, or even sort of offhandedly threatening to charge for services like Instagram if users don't opt in. Now they're doing all they can to sort of outsmart Apple and try to get around the new privacy practices they have in place. A new report from the Financial Times explains that apps like Facebook are taking advantage of looser interpretations of app tracking transparency rules and collecting anonymized aggregated info from users even if they have opted out of tracking explicitly. The Financial Times also revealed a few months ago that some developers and ad networks were using different methods to try to bypass Apple's stricter tracking rules, and in some cases continue to collect data on over 95% of iOS users. Both Facebook and Snapchat recently called out Apple in their earnings, talking about how big of an issue app tracking transparency is and how they're trying to circumvent this and, I guess, sort of, well, in better words, sort of rebuild their ad technologies to better adapt. But suffice it to say, this is going to be a cat and mouse game for the foreseeable future. Apple is going to continue to sort of crack down, put these stricter rules in place. Companies are going to try to circumvent them and collect this information. It's just going to be this sort of yin and yang for a while, and there's really not going to be a winner or loser for the foreseeable future unless Apple decides to one day finally kick off Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp and other, Facebook owned services or sort of bad behaving apps from their app stores entirely. And this is sort of interesting to think about because on one hand, it seems like this would never happen. People rely on Facebook services too much, but we know Apple isn't afraid to take action when companies sort of go against the rules. Fortnite is now a classic, famous example of this. And it sort of does make you think, what was to happen if Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp were gone tomorrow from the iPhone? Who needs who more? Does Apple need Facebook because so many users rely on those apps? Would people switch to Android immediately if Facebook stopped working? And do they really need those apps on their phones every single day? I know a lot of people do, but is that tens of millions, millions? Is it hundreds of thousands? What is that number? Really, who needs who more? Who benefits from the other more in this instance? And I'm curious if we could ever see the day that Apple was to completely ban and shut down Facebook entirely. It's seeming more and more like it could happen, and with the iPhone 14 and iOS 16, wouldn't be surprised if stricter privacy practices go into place that eventually sort of really limit what Facebook, the app, can do. But this is just the first chapter to this story, because not only do Facebook and Apple sort of hate each other on this privacy, safety, and security level, but they've never really been direct competitors. Facebook never really made a phone. They sort of tried, but that didn't really go anywhere. Apple's not really in the social network game, so they're sort of competing in two different lanes. But now, as we enter into this new chapter in 2022, Apple and Facebook are going to now be directly competing for you, your money, and some precious real estate on your face. Facebook has been trying to make VR happen for years, and Oculus devices have gotten better and better in time, apps are getting better, and it seems like by recent reports, the latest holiday season of 2021 was a big boost for the sort of Oculus VR community. Many people got these devices for Christmas, people are jumping on and playing games, and it seems like VR is becoming more popular now than it ever has been before. At the same time, though, rumors are heating up that Apple is about to enter this space and totally change everything. They are launching their own Oculus competitor. It seems like it's a mixed reality AR VR headset that's going to be loaded with cameras and sensors and a lot of tech inside that might just wipe the floor with Facebook and totally make the next gen AR VR headset that everyone's got to have that is miles, miles better than what Facebook is doing with Oculus. And it's sort of hard to know how this is going to play out, how these two devices are going to compete, what the two are going to do the same or differently. But what's so fascinating about this is that Apple does have one big advantage they've shown off, sort of their superpower time and time again, that Facebook doesn't really have, and that is the developer community, specifically with the App Store. The App Store has been a huge deal for the iPhone, the iPad, even sort of, I guess, the Apple Watch and macOS as well, and having the developer community and the App Store on their side is going to be a big deal when it comes to this next generation AR VR hardware, because developers are going to be making apps for Apple's devices, they're going to be trying to get in on the ground floor of this brand new technology and really get to their app on your face with this headset, and I'm not sure if this same can be said for Facebook. Obviously, there is a lot of developer interest in the Oculus platform, and a lot of people are really developing and putting a lot of money behind it. But when it comes time to make a decision on whether you should develop for Apple or Oculus, I feel like more often than not, people are going to go Apple, and developers are going to choose to spend their time and money with Apple and not with Oculus. But maybe this is not an either or, but it's sort of a versus. Maybe this is the next generation of iOS and Android, the next Mac versus PC. It's Apple versus Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call it. And now it is sort of these two dominant platforms that are sort of leading the next generation of this AR, VR mixed reality technology that will one day, according to rumors and analysts, finally replace your smartphone. It has been fascinating and really kind of fun to watch Apple and Facebook feud over privacy practices and app tracking transparency and data collection. If that is how they feud when they're not competing, I cannot wait to see what happens when they're actually competing in the same product category. I cannot wait to see what the future holds and what this Apple and Facebook feud will look like in 2022 and the years to come. So anyways, what are your guys' thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Apple versus Facebook? Is there a good guy? Is there a bad guy? Is Facebook really the sleazy company we believe it to be, or is Facebook getting a bad rap? Is Apple really the champion of your privacy, or are they putting on a facade? What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in your comments, I guess in my comments, in our comments down below, your thoughts on all this, and we can discuss the Apple versus Facebook saga. As always, thank you guys so much for watching the Apple Circle. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I will see you all in the next one.